Authenticity in social leadership. Authenticity is something really rather wonderful, rather strange, and extremely valuable. It's valuable because people value it. When I've interviewed in organisations about the top traits they look for in social leaders, often authenticity in their storytelling is the top trait. We understand authenticity very deeply. It's almost the power that sits behind a story. And it's a funny old thing because authenticity can't be bought. In fact, the act of trying to buy authenticity or cheat authenticity may remove the very thing that we're looking for. You could probably describe authenticity as an honorific status. Honorific goods are ones which aren't marketed in the same way. You can't apply a market to honorific goods because applying a market to them devalues the thing itself. So if I say to you, I'll pay you £100 or $100 if you believe my story, you're probably less likely to believe my story because putting a monetary value on it removes the honorific of saying, I believe your story because I think it's deeply rooted. That rooted nature of authenticity is something I've been exploring recently. I've actually been playing around with a new type of illustration around social leadership, depicting social leaders and formal leaders as trees within a forest. And I'm using that because it ties into this sense of an ecosystem that has formal elements and social elements, but crucially, an understanding that trees don't make a forest. It's trees and the landscape they're within. It's the water that they draw, the carbon dioxide they take out of the air, the oxygen they put in the air. Trees exist within an ecosystem, much like social leaders exist within an ecosystem, and our role is to help it find balance. When it comes to storytelling, some of that balance is going to come from our ability to understand storytelling and, crucially, to shape and share authentic stories. As a formal leader, there may be times when the organisation says to you, you have to do this thing because you're a formal leader. You're in this role, therefore you must hire somebody, you must fire somebody. You must share this story because this is the company line. Even in good organisations, we sometimes have to operate within the parameters of our formal role. But as social leaders, we have to do what's right, not just what's easy. And occasionally, in either small or large ways, what's right may differ slightly from what's formally mandated. Well, at those times, we may be left with a stark choice: to come into conflict with the organisation or to come into conflict with our community. And the anchor for us at times like that are the deep roots that we have put down, our roots into the formal organisation and our roots into our social community, and our ability to shape stories where we can explore that difference. We have to be able to share stories into the formal system, exploring our discomfort, even if the action that we take is ultimately that mandated by the organisation. As responsible social leaders, we need to spray some of our cultural graffiti back into the organisation to say, I'm doing this thing, but collectively we need to explore why we're doing this thing. We need to create the seeds of change in the organisational mindset if we are to change the system. But similarly, we have to share authentic stories out into the community. If we just do the thing and don't explore our reasoning or our discomfort, then we fracture the bonds of trust which exist at the local tribal level. And if this sounds like a balancing act, it is, because balance is not something you have, it's something that you try to remain within sight of, as the pressures of the organisation and the pressures of our community bounce us around like leaves in the wind. As social leaders, we will understand that roots take time to put down. It's through the authenticity of our actions over time. It's the way that we look after the system as a whole which will allow us to put those roots down. We know the obvious things about authenticity. The truth tends to be authentic. Lived experience tends to be authentic. Things that are made up or things that fracture the trust that exists between us and our community tends to be inauthentic. The funny thing is, in a healthy ecosystem, we will be forgiven. If we've earned our social authority, then when the storm hits, it may batter us, but it won't break us. Authenticity actually is something of an insurance policy against those times when we make mistakes. And I say that deliberately, when we make mistakes, because we are ultimately all human and all make mistakes. So better to curate a reputation which will allow us to weather that particular storm. Authenticity in social leadership is something that we curate. It's something we can consciously work on. So what do we need to remember in all this? Well, firstly, as an individual, remember that authenticity is something which is awarded to us by the community, by the organisation itself. So through our actions over time, we will be deemed to be authentic storytellers. Within the organisation, we need to remember that authentic social leaders will not recklessly challenge us. When they challenge us, we need to listen humbly to what they say. We need to recognise that the process of becoming socially dynamic is evolutionary. And within our communities, we need to understand that authenticity in storytelling is both something that we grow ourselves and something that we bestow onto others. So through our words and our actions, through our kindness, we help others to become authentic storytellers, effective social leaders.